We're going to move now into kind of something we were talking a bit about yesterday, about this flexibility, the agility, and how we have to respond to all of these external forces that are impacting our businesses at the moment. And we're kicking off this morning with how do you build a workforce for the future? So a challenge for many businesses. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about technology, we talk a lot about processes, but we've also talked a bit about how people and individuals and our employees interact with all of those. So we're going to have a panel discussion to kick off this morning. How can you build the workforce for the future? And this is going to be moderated by Luke Kerr, who is Supply Chain Director of Solent Group. He's a former British Army commander and physical training instructor. So we'll all be doing press-ups and running around in the hall outside on his instruction after this. He's a motivational leader, coach, mentor, instructor, and over the past 25 years, he's had a varied and colourful career, from serving in the forces in operations in Africa, Northern Ireland, to competing in elite sports, from running and boxing in the army, to working as a FIFA instructor in the Middle East, to running ultra marathons across the UK and Europe, whilst raising money for mental health charity Mind. He's well respected in business, and his experienced, successful and highly driven transformational supply chain and operational leader who creates and sustains high performing teams able to execute business strategy and deliver top line objectives. So I think we're all going to be doing what Luke tells us, and let's kick off the discussion.
Hey, thank you, and good morning. Welcome to day 2 in Berlin. I'm not sure whether our guests are joining us online or not, so haven't been given the okay. So, oh yep, they're here.
We are in there, Luke. Morning.
So, good morning, everybody. I think before we start, just for the benefit of the audience and those online, maybe if we introduce our guests. So, if we start initially with Alexander. So, if you'd like to introduce yourself, Alex.
Yes, hello everyone. Alexander Lundin, working as head of strategy for Volvo Car Supply Chain Management. Basically, the car manufacturer. So Volvo Group is one company and Volvo Cars is another one. So I can answer questions regarding the car side, not the truck and construction equipment side. So heading strategy within Volvo Cars, basically covering supply chain management from industrial planning through suppliers to inbound, outbound and spare parts. And we also have customs and export control. So quite a wide end-to-end scope, and hopefully I can give you some insights on how we look at the workforce of the future.
Thank you, Alex. And then online as well, we have Victoria. Victoria, I would like you to introduce yourself.
Oh, hello everyone. I'm Victoria, originally from Russia. So I'm formerly head of SCM development and in Transmesh Holding and OMK Steel, United Metallurgical Company, and formerly also Sibur. So my key responsibilities are supply chain and logistics network development. And now I'm just started my consulting experience, and I'm really glad to be with you today.
Thank you, Victoria. And Simon, yourself?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a few people. I've introduced myself a few times. I wasn't originally going to be on this panel, but then they realised I've got human resources in my job title, and so here I am. So yeah, I'm head of human resources for the engine control systems business in Birmingham in the UK for Collins Aerospace.
Maybe you should be moderating, Simon. And then last but not least, from Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, we've got Damodar on the...
Yeah, Damo for short.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kerr. Damo here. Some of you might have got to hear me yesterday in the Mesa setup. Like Simon, I'm much of a cross-plant. I spent 16 years with Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and with Coca-Cola running plants, digitizing lines, etc. before I realized that the core competency is actually being able to build the people. And so since 2 years, I've been the lead for learning across Europe and Asia Pacific for building in supply chain capabilities around Industry 4.0. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, Dan. So just to kick off the topic, the first sort of leading question is, what are the emerging demands in terms of your workforce in the coming years? And I think in terms of recruiting the workforce also as well, how do you retain the workforce as well? So that's probably one of the biggest challenges. It's a very buoyant market at the moment for supply chain professionals. There's lots of opportunities out there, but how do we attract new talent coming into the industry, whether that be graduates, apprenticeships seem to be a buzzword over the last couple of years in the UK, but are they actually living up to expectations? So I'm going to get Simon to kick this one actually, because aerospace it's taken a bit of a hit, shall we say, over the last couple of years. And is it going to be an attractive sort of industry to go to now with the stop-start scenarios that we've seen? So Simon.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, attracting talent. I mean, the talent we need is technical talent. That's where we struggle the most. So when we're looking for engineers, product engineers, it tends to be engineering specialism rather than generalism. So we do need stress engineers who just spend their whole life doing stress analysis. And these sorts of skills are tricky to find. So we really need to start finding those people when they're in university and then encouraging them to join our sort of graduate programs. Interesting you say about the sort of early careers and the retaining people. We've had a look, and we do have this sort of mass resignation concept going on in our company, where people with up to 5 years service in the company are the ones that are tending to leave us, and the ones that are 5 years plus are the ones we're tending to retain. And we've been doing some evaluation as to why that might be. And when we've asked these people, it tends to come down to career path. They want to fast track their career, especially if they're early career. They want to see a future in the company. So the things that we're finding are critical are sitting down with them and having that sort of joint conversation, but then also commitment from both sides to develop our employees to a certain level of competence, and therefore give them opportunities of promotion and also of interesting roles in other parts of our business. If they can see that path, they tend to be more likely to stay. If they just come to work and think, well, this is it, then they tend to try and promote themselves by moving to another company and getting that promotional aspect of their career fast-tracked that way. So we're now putting a lot more time into the one-to-one conversations, into the talent development activity, and getting a clear career plan for the next sort of 4 to 5 years for these people who are just joining us or are early in their career with us.
And just leading into that, Simon, as well, are you seeing many females coming into aerospace?
A lot more than we were, but I did some evaluation the other day because we're an American company, and the American companies tend to have a sort of target on diversity and inclusion in their senior roles. So they want a certain amount to be different ethnic backgrounds and also male, female diversity. And we looked at our senior team, and it was 20% female, 80% male. And there was some discussion about whether this was good or not. And then I looked at the demographic of our site, and it's exactly 80% male and 20% female. So therefore, if you extrapolate that, it kind of fits. And then you go, well, what sort of people are coming into the industry? And what I see in the technical side of things, so more the electronics on that side of things, we are getting more females who are coming through the sort of STEM programs at universities and through apprenticeships. What I would call the old school mechanics, where we have the mechanical engineering, that still seems to be more male dominated for whatever reason. And then you go to HR and you go to finance, and the percentage flips the other way. It's 80% female to 20% male. So again, there's these paradigms that need shifting, and I think that needs to start right down in the educational level, so that people realize that you can have a career in any of these, and it makes that pool more diluted.
Yeah, and I think in my 20 plus years now in supply chain, I think for 17 years it was in a very manufacturing heavily orientated company, and even 20 years ago there was this challenge of bringing more women into the industry, and I haven't seen it accelerated, if I'm being honest, in manufacturing and supply chain. In the industry I'm in now, in retail, it's a lot more female dominated. In terms of my team is probably 70% female. So Victoria, what do you think the industry needs to do to attract more women into our industries and sectors?
First of all, I would name the following main challenges now, not only regarding to the women, but also some others. I would name increasing the discreteness of chains, first of all, increasing customer requirements, of course, decreasing orders, and also complication of supply chains with the expansion of assets. And of course, defining the role of IT in the future. And of course, the role of women in this future. Because we see that it's really a great point. And moreover, I suppose that in industrial society, the brain replaces the muscles. And now robotics is replacing muscles. And artificial intelligence is replacing the brain. So where are we going? Of course, to the heart. So I think that the heart is the next stage in the development of humanity. And neither robotics nor AI can replace the heart. And so this is the ability to feel, first of all. And I think, I do really believe that all these successful companies in the future will have access to AI and robotics. But what will be a competitive advantage then? Of course, hard. Because these questions like how much you love your customers and satisfy their needs, how much you love your community, how much you love your employees, suppliers, the love is caring. So I think that it is the real competitive advantage that will be. And strong brains and of course will be necessary, but companies cannot do it with a big heart. And in my opinion, leaders of the future will not only think, but also feel. And it's impossible to think and to feel at the same time. And coming back to the question of women in the future supply chains, I would say that I'm really pleased to be one of the top 100 women in supply chain. And I think such kind of nominations are really motivating, not only for women, but I do believe that women, and not only women, you must be a professional, first of all, and no matter who you are, women, men, or other humanity.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. And Alex, if I can bring you in there as well, in terms of recruitment for the Volvo transformation going into a new era, what sort of demands are you seeing placed upon your business and also maybe some of your competitors?
Absolutely. And I mean, if, as you mentioned, aerospace is kind of in the spotlight and losing interest and losing people, maybe automotive is the other way around. I mean, traditionally, we just tend to build cars and sell cars the old traditional way. And now something's happening. Mobility is happening in a quick and rapid pace, fueled by the younger generations for sure. So I would say we see the opposite. We see quite a great interest to join automotive. And then it's about, you talked about competitors, Luke. I mean, the ones with the clearest, boldest statements with the purpose. We see a very clear interest spurring for Volvo Cars as a brand. And I would also like to touch upon the female-male stuff. For first, Sweden is quite, I would say, advanced in gender equality. And I would like to even lose gender. I mean, to be honest, we don't even talk about genders anymore. We talk about people, we talk about employees, and we talk about a fair chance for everyone. And that is something that we're quite proud to stand for. What I would like to say, and we've discussed this a bit in our management team, is that what about stop promoting typical historical male attributes, such as toughness or showing power? And you know, the historical as we see as old stuff, you know? Is that the way? Do we then promote people on those attributes, or do we promote people on something else? And what has happened is that we see that when we really talk about the skill set, the openness, the ability to collaborate, the curious people and way of thinking, that attracts new people that really bring diversity in a way we never expected. So I would maybe challenge the old male, female, or typical industries and talk about more open, collaborative, curious environments. And that's up to us as leaders to create. And it takes some courage to do that, because you kind of let go of the control when you do this, but something interesting happens. So I would say, and then for supply chain in an industrial company, because we're still seen as an industrial company, it is our task to make clear that we see the full company. And if you really want to understand the end-to-end company mechanics, supply chain is a great place to start. Because who wants to join? Oh, I'm a graduate. We have graduate programs that are excellent. Oh, come to logistics, trucks, moving parts, that's not even interesting. No, it's something else. It's supply chain. You get the full end-to-end view of the full company. So that I would say is happening in automotive and in Volvo cars specifically.
And I'm going to bring Dan in a moment, because obviously the title Coca-Cola, big marketing strategies out in the marketplace on your TVs. In terms of marketing your business though, how do you do that, Simon and Alex, in terms of, you know, you've got these internal initiatives, you're running these programs, but how are you making sure that the next generation of engineers can see that? You know, are you working with schools? Are you doing campaigns in your local community and stuff to let them know who you are and what you do?
I can start quickly. We're a Swedish company, and in Sweden we're the number 2 in size. So we get that naturally. That's a part of it. What we do see then is in our American sites and our Chinese sites, then there's a different thing. Then we have to be a lot more clearer and crisp in what we say. So I would say that clear and crisp purpose in all our communication, that is what brings us into the sort of standing out or in the forefront, and people actually, oh, this is interesting, what is this? So I won't use the word disrupting, but bold is something we do use, and we consider ourselves to be quite bold in the old automotive industry, which we want to leave and become something else.
So you're almost a transformation of your brand as well, in terms of what you speak about in the marketplace. Definitely.
There's a big transformation in automotive, and the ones that transform the fastest will survive. That's quite clear.
Yeah.
I think we have something different. So since working in aerospace, I think I've worked for one of the biggest companies in the world that nobody knows about, because our brand is just not a strong brand. It's been a sort of many different takeovers, and each time there's a takeover or a merger, then the name changes. And I've already worked for 4 companies in 15 years, but stayed in the same company. So that sort of says something to you. So you then go out into the marketplace and say Collins Aerospace, and they're like, who are they? What do they do? And then you say, oh, we got Pratt & Whitney engines as part of us. Raytheon Missiles and Technologies, that's part of our group as well. 80,000 plus employees worldwide. And then they go, oh, that's quite big actually. So then we have to really get in there amongst the other aerospace companies where we're marketing. So we do go to job fairs, we do go to the universities, we do sponsor students, we do go to schools and partner with them locally to try and bring the local people through those schools and into the workplace without having, because geographic mobility seems to be quite a big barrier as well, certainly for the lower levels of the organization. So we do a lot of that sort of work, and we really sell our culture and the way that we go about things. So we have something called the Collins Path, which is the way that all leaders have this sort of behavioral code. and the way that we all want to treat each other with trust and respect. And I'm sure many other companies have something similar, but it is a code that we hold ourselves to and that we're very proud of. And that's how we want to interact with individuals, and we want our employees to feel valued, and that is the key thing. So it's always putting the employee at the center of the discussion. So we go out and we promote that. We promote what it's all about. You look at all of our marketing, it's people with smiley faces. It's not aeroplanes flying around. You know, we've moved on from that. We know it's about the people, and that's how we connect with them.
Yeah, and Dan, just bringing you in, I mean, Coca-Cola, surely, you know, quite an attractive brand to the millennials coming in. I mean, is that the case? Are you having talent come your way, and if so, are you retaining it, or do you have challenges on the back of Ronaldo not wanting to drink Coca-Cola and have a sip of water? So, you know, Dan, how are you finding these challenges at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. It goes both ways. I think as an operations excellence person, I always say there's room for more. So you are right. Having that brand that has a 130-year-old history means we are well known, and we get to pick our candidates from as far as talent is concerned. But nonetheless, retention is just as important. And I think I'd quickly build on what Simon, Victor, and Alex said. I think one thing is very clear: we'll need to reflect our target groups that we have in the markets to be able to best serve them. So, for example, our female diversity is currently already around about 30%, even at the higher management levels, even in senior management, and that has helped us bring in programs like where we have said we won't advertise to anything under 12. So if you see a Coca-Cola machine in a school canteen, it doesn't have any Coke or Fanta logos on it. It's just white. And we try to get only water and juices into those. So some of those commitments came in because we had employees coming in that represented groups, parents, etc., that then had a different way of looking at the way we are doing business. It's about being responsible and still being successful. It's the same impact we have on sustainability. So it's what Victoria said about getting the heart into your teams. You need to be able to bring in the diversity so that as a top team, you also think about all the groups you are having an impact on, and you are able to work with them. And yes, in our European countries, we have the advantage that STEM education, there's a greater fairness, there's a more openness to diversity. It's not necessarily the case in all the countries we operate in. And there we try to put our values up straight in front and center and try to lead with them. And I think the biggest thing which Simon kind of built on, career pathing, that becomes very important in companies like Coke, because we get a lot of great talent, far more than we can actually bring to their best potential. So we do have a large group of alumni who have been great, and we found that they could actually perform much better outside the company, and they've moved on. But we also have great people who work across roles. They don't necessarily stay in the supply chain, and we have people in supply chain who have come in from other functions. So that mix and match and being able to offer cross-functional paths, that is what has been useful for us. And I think the role of IT is not to be diminished. The fact that me and Victoria can join virtually and keep to company policy on avoiding meetings and conferences means that the ability to be able to connect people, whether they're handicapped, whether they come from a different background, or whether they have a family to care for, those things are becoming possible today, stuff that was not possible 10 years ago. And I think that way we are becoming a more inclusive world, and it remains for us as employers, as manufacturing companies. I look at supply chains as the ones that actually create value to keep championing that change we want to see in the society we live in. Yeah. Right. So Luke, that's a longish answer to the question.
Obviously, attracting talent into your industry and into your company is one thing. When they arrive, it's then challenging them enough to be able to retain them, to be able to empower them. I've seen it in the past, a lot of businesses bring talent in and then they're left, and then, you know, they don't retain that talent. I think, you know, this is a good one for you as well, Simon. Aerospace for me has always seemed to be a very slow to move industry. I've worked with various businesses before in the aerospace industry where, you know, there is talent within there, but it gets suffocated with not being moved. So how do you create, you know, teams of the future with the technical demands that your industry puts upon you, but at the same time making sure that team's capable and being able to retain that knowledge as well within the business, which is probably more important than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge because we are slow moving, highly regulated. All the things you kind of described there, and deep specialism is there. I mean, I've worked in other industries, and the development cycle times have been less than a year. In aerospace, you're looking at 5-6 year programs to get an aeroplane developed, and you need to have that stability of resource throughout that because of the tacit knowledge people gain as they develop that. And you find that these experts, you know, they'll look at something and they'll just go, that's not going to be right because that needs to fit. But that knowledge is built up over 30 years, and they're then mentoring and coaching the junior engineers who are going, well, why can't I just go to some automotive? Because I can get learning ever so quickly, I can get promoted ever so quickly, and that seems like what I want, because at the end of the day, I want to be the head honcho with all the money and the nice things that go with that. So you're competing against that, and then you have to try and work out how to move these people around. I think what we're finding now is that deep specialism is important, but there's also a big case now for agility, and we're doing lots more rotational programs for our employees, and also restructuring in a thoughtful manner. So we are doing a lot of organizational design activity where we have a leadership development review every 6 months where we rate all of our leaders and where they are as to what potential they've got and how their current performance is. We then look at what their next assignment should be. We look at who should mentor them, and we look at sort of what experience they need. And then we start to look at the organization and say, well, this person, we could move from supply chain into engineering to gain some skills there. There's a person here in HR who also wanted some financial experience, so we'll move them across. Or we've just got people who like it in finance and they're blocked by their manager. So we look at other facilities in the UK, or there's a shared services area, and we start to sort of cycle them through those to get the development. And we really enforce with the leaders that their job is to enable progression of their talent to the highest level. So my job is to make sure that the people who work for me get promoted, and I should be happy when they leave and go to another part of the business and have got that promotional prospect. So that is really key. And then the final thing I'd say is very clear feedback, because the amount of people that come to me and say, I don't know why I'm not getting the promotions or I'm not moving on. And you go to the boss, and if you say to their boss, have you ever given them the feedback as to why this is? Because it's clear to everybody that, you know, they either don't get on with people, the way they go about things is command control and it's not appreciated, or they're not forceful enough, so they're not driving for results, or they're a really nice person, but totally ineffective. And you look at the results then versus what they've been tasked to do, and the two don't correlate. And until you give that blunt feedback and work with them, then there just becomes this, oh, I never get promoted, and it's always the favourites who do. And again, when that comes up, I say, yes, it is the favourites. I can sit here looking at this room here and I can tell you who's engaged and who isn't, because I can see it. And those people are speaking to me saying, I want more. The people are like, oh, the world's really bad and I never get promoted. I said, yes, you're not self-promoting and putting yourself forward for these roles. You're not proactive. These are the skills that we're looking for. So yes, we need that conversation. And now how could you put yourself out there and self-promote and market yourself more so that you become a promotional candidate and a good representative of our business? So all of those things put together is where we go with our talent.
Just picking up on what you said there about mentor as well. I think mentor is a hugely important role within the business. If you could find a mentoring team, I know within our business, we've done exactly that right across the business. So, and it's not necessarily always the specialist within that area. It can be somebody from finance, it could be mentoring one of your engineers. It could be somebody within the supply chain that's mentoring the commercial team on, you know, prioritizing workloads and whatever it may be. So a mentor is really important, I think. And also touching on what Simon said there as well about, you know, his role is to get people promoted. He's here to help. And I think that as leaders is what we should be doing with our workforces, as first and foremost is to help the teams develop on those structures and technical ladders or whatever they may be. I mean, do you have a similar mentoring program or something, Alex, within your business?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do. And I can just resonate in what you say in the importance of mentoring, and also resonate in basically all you said. I think it's a great way of seeing it. And I think leadership is something else than managing someone. That's a secondary, maybe even the smallest part, to be honest. I mean, we're here to give the arena, the possibilities, and the support for all our employees to thrive and as you say, pass us hopefully in the hierarchy. If we even want to have hierarchies in the future, that's also a discussion point on itself. But definitely resonating with the mentoringship. I mean, we're quite a big company. Your company is twice the amount of employees. It's hard to navigate. When you enter a big corporation like that, it's very hard to navigate. And if you can have support in that navigation from a mentor, that's gonna skyrocket your development. So from that perspective, I think also it's important because we create the organisms and they grow into quite complex organisms, being the company. So from that perspective, mentoring is also, as we see it, very helpful for the people coming on board.
Yeah, I highly recommend with your development strategies to have a mentoring part in there is definitely. And Dan, just bringing you in terms of your recruitment and development strategies, you know, obviously with the title of with learning in there, you must have a big say in the business of how those strategies are, you know, rolled out across the business. Yeah, so let me come to that question. I'll just build on what you already said, Luke. Mentoring and millennials, that's a connect there, which Beat's mentioning. Reverse mentoring, this is one of the things that Coke has massively benefited from. So in Coca-Cola European Partners, we have our 20-somethings and early 30s talk to our top people and tell them what they want. So that's one of our ways of figuring out what the millennials want, what are they going for, what is their purpose pushing them to do, and we learn from those. And the rollout of learning strategies is very much based on that. So the youngest people in my team are the ones who are bringing in virtual reality as a training medium and talking about how that enables people who are not able to leave their houses because of COVID, or women who can't come out for a whole week for a training course, to be able to stay within their houses and participate in collaborative trainings or workshops. So I think that's a large bit of having a good learning plan about taking what skills you need for the future, what kind of workforce you are able to get from the market. And then while you get on that journey, being able to bring in those new groups. For example, the Gen Z thinks and works differently than we were brought up in our school. These are people who left university basically thumbing through text. Holding a pencil will probably be a challenge for my kids. So some of those new changes won't fit into that rigid learning and development strategies that I picked up from my boss. So I think that's a big part of having a strategy, but then being able to adapt to the situation as it comes in. So yes, I do help create and roll out the learning bits across the Europacific partners, but a large part of it is also listening to my customers and understanding where they're going, what they want done, what's the burning platform, what's the long-term platform, and where do we then divide our resources, time and money to get the best impact. Thank you, Dan. And Victoria, just anything you would like to add on recruitment strategies from your perspective?
Yes, and also about technical demands. I would say that the aims from the point of view of digitalization, I would name 3 of them. First of all, it should be a dedicated block in the SCM functions responsible for development with so responsibility for operations and development, which should be not mixed, because you can only do operations or only can do development. The second one, I would say that it is the increasing flow of information for effective decision making, which is compensating because the adoption of standard decisions which are algorithmized and carried out in an automatic mode. And for example, according to Gartner, the volume of such information increases annually by 20%. And at the same time, personal responsibility for such decisions remains. And I do believe that in 2025, in most companies, a certain percentage of SCM decisions should be made by artificial intelligence. And Demo also said something about projects. I would say that one of the key factors of successful SCM projects and digitalization, software planning implementation projects is trust. So don't start a project if you don't trust your personnel, don't trust your planners. And if you don't trust, just replace them and the whole team at once, because the trust is something that you cannot bought. It's just like the heart, which I told you before. So these such kind of things, they are very important. And of course, we do understand that artificial intelligence, this robotics and so on, they are very important. But the key are people, they are always are key.
In terms of strategies then moving forward, and Simon, I'm going to bring this back to you again, considering you've got 80,000 employees, is you must have a strategies behind in terms of split of apprenticeship programs, graduate programs, and then maybe open entry. And I don't know if there's any that are missing from that. I know from my past experience of working with a major composite engineering business that apprenticeship programs were so important in terms of growing your own people. You know, probably at A level in the UK, sort of, you know, good maths, good English, capturing those people early on. And some of the success stories that I've seen is when I left that business, sort of 10 years on when we first recruited those, they were senior people then in the business, head of engineering, process engineers, you know, supply chain coordinators. And so it can be done. But to what split do you look at those strategies in terms of recruitment?
I think it's what we tend to look at. So it's an interesting industry because we're just seeing large turnover of people who have been in the industry for over 40 years. So what happened this year, we put a voluntary redundancy scheme in place as we hit the downturn, and we lost, you know, a lot of very good knowledge that's been built up over that time frame. We could see this coming, obviously, because it's not like people suddenly get to retirement age and you're like, oh, how did that happen? You know, so we got plans in place, and the way that we did that was we had to over-resource by bringing apprentices and graduates in, and then use this knowledge at the sort of top end, as it were, to train those people up and start to hand over some of that tacit knowledge, which then these younger employees. Now, the key thing is to retain them. Otherwise, you put them in early career, they get trained up, become very useful to other companies, and then they move if you haven't given them that career path. Now, we're a big enough company that really should not be an issue. But as I said, you know, there are challenges there as well. So I think when we look at that strategic viewpoint, then it is bringing in early talent, recruiting talent for its potential rather than what it has at the moment, and then training that up with these seasoned specialists, and then you lose at the top end and they're coming in at the bottom end. And then of course you will get people who are moving around, so we connect between countries and within country with that talent management process, and we say this person needs to be rotated somewhere and they need an opportunity of this type, and then they will either get an international assignment or they will get a UK assignment in a different area so that they can learn and grow that way. That then opens up a gap, and then somebody else comes through from a different sort of talent management system because they need that experience. So we often see, you know, people from all over Europe running some of our factories. My boss at the moment is in the US, and he travels back and forth and kind of manages that way. But the way we're all connected now, that's less of an issue than it perhaps was in the past. And then, of course, when people do leave and there's an opening and we haven't got a talent pool ready and somebody to go into that role, then we will recruit probably 2 or 3% externally, really to bring in fresh thinking and understanding. And I think that's where the external talent pool is a good resource, because people who come from a different industry will bring a different perspective. And what I see is they either jump straight back out again, because aerospace is a strange, and like you say, it feels slow moving. I always said when I was in automotive, when problems occurred, it was like being attacked by a tiger. You could see it coming really fast and it mauled you and you had to fight it quickly. In aerospace, it's like being strangled by a sort of snake, by a constrictor. So it just slowly goes around and squeezes the life out of you. And then you suddenly, when it's too late, go, oh no, what am I going to do now to recover this situation? And if you take somebody from the sort of tiger industry and put them in that sort of environment, some of them just don't understand it and can't adapt. So again, it's a certain sort of person that we find that will stick with aerospace. Likewise in other industries, I guess it's the same, that you'll have certain character types that gravitate towards your style.
And you touched on there about people leaving the business. Obviously, aerospace. I know a few aerospace companies myself where that voluntary redundancy program quite recently has happened. You've got people with huge amount of accumulated years over that period of time in business. I mean, some businesses I spoke to have 45 years of experience with individuals. How do you retain that knowledge in the business, and what systems do you put in place that can support the people and the strategies moving forward?
I mean, that is tough, because you can. I mean, tacit knowledge by its definition is something you can't write down. so it's something that you learn that response. And I think it's like driving a car or something like that. When you first get into driving a car, it's really difficult for somebody to describe to you how you push a clutch down, and then you have to bring that up to a biting point and push the accelerator down, and how do you do all of that? And then you learn that, and you're bunny hopping your way around the sort of the roads and stalling and all this sort of thing. But then as you get experience, probably 6 or 7 years later, you're at the point where you don't think about that just all happens. And it's how to get those 40-year-olds transferring that sort of knowledge through that standard work to start off with, but then growing and developing them. And I mean, I've got kids, and I look at the way kids are taught things, especially like swimming. It amazes me that you'll just pick up a child and they just teach them the basic stroke, and then I watch them, they just kind of leave them there, and this child's sort of scrabbling around, but it knows the edge of the pool's over there, and they make it. They get there because it's survival. And it's kind of giving those sort of experiences to these younger engineers and any employee really, so that they have that stretch, so that they're taken most of the way there, but then they've really got to think for themselves, because that's where the true learning comes. Then they know they can do that, which gives them confidence. And then we enhance the skills through the mentorship and the sort of one-on-one training, which for us, they double up for 6 months to a year with an expert and an apprentice.
So you touched on there by them sort of finding their own way. I mean, Alex, question for you really is, with a lot of manufacturing companies, you're very led by plans, builds and routes and materials and stuff like that. How do you encourage creativity and innovation in that marketplace then as well, when within your business? And if you've got new talent coming in, they want to contribute to the bigger picture. So do you build that into your learning strategies with your workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, we're not perfect in that. And I think that's one of the bigger challenges, especially when new generations are coming in, and millennials and onwards. I mean, having fun is one of the top priorities. If you don't have fun, you leave. That's the way. And you pair these with people that are used to work 30 to 40 years in the same place. And of course, it's a different way of thinking. So I think bridging that gap is going to be very interesting and challenging going forward now, because we do need, for instance, we talk about all the transformational stuff in supply chain. We talk about the digitalization, and in manufacturing industries, we also see the new technologies, and basically they get 80 to 90% of the interest and focus. But we can't forget the basics that are in place. I mean, we talk about aerospace, we talk about automotive safety. We have huge knowledge, 40 plus years again, in how to build safe airplanes or safe cars. And maybe that's not the biggest transformational point, but it sure is important. And we have a number of these skill sets that maybe aren't seen as the most interesting stuff. Maybe it's not sort of lifting you up on a pedestal in this disruption transformation, but you have to have it in place. So I think bridging that gap by using experience, maybe in the old way, compared with new ways of thinking and creativity, but foster the open collaboration and dialogue to reach sort of the best of both worlds. And that's going to be challenging for all of us, the people coming in and the people who's been there forever. So both are important.
I think touching on what you said there about having fun. I mean, I've worked in supply chain for 20 plus years. I've had opportunities to work in sports careers, and working for FIFA was fun. But for me, industry is fun. We can have fun. But I suppose for the audience, how do we build fun into our strategies for learning and development? I mean, for me, reward and recognition is always very important. Stopping and celebrating and moving on and having those incentive schemes. I mean, I'm going to bring this to you, Dan, is how do we make our learning and development strategies fun for the next generation of engineers, supply chain specialists? You know, that fun part needs to be there, because let's be honest here, we all need to enjoy what we do.
Well, I think part of it is also getting the feedbacks, right? So we run 4 engagement surveys every year in order to hear from our people on what they like, what they didn't like, how are the new initiatives doing, are they hearing enough from the top management, do they feel heard? And I think one important part that always comes through the comments in the engagement surveys is how do people feel? How communication is a two-way street, and one of the things that often comes through is where are they in terms of their well-being, and well-being is part of, are you having fun on the job? Are you enjoying your job enough to be able to wake up every day and come back to do more of it? And I think that feedback loop is absolutely important for us, and learning builds on that. So whenever we introduce new learning systems or curricula, we ask the audience team, where are you at? So we have gone away from those long happy sheets to a single question saying, did you like it? Would you recommend it to somebody else? So a simple net promoter score.
Thank you, Dan. And I suppose we're coming to almost the end of the topic now before we go on to some questions. Just very briefly, one piece of advice in terms of recruitment and development. So, you know, how do we retain, then how do we develop? I mean, Simon, anything to a takeaway sort of headline for recruitment?
I mean, the offer has to be enticing. I think it's a sales job. So you've got to sell the things that your company is about, but you've also got to be transparent and clear about that. And the people who are recruiting need to be that. They need to be demonstrating your values. If you're saying we're an enthusiastic company, you've got to be saying that with enthusiasm. You can't say we're an enthusiastic company. People don't believe you. So you've got to put that face to the market. And also, I think another thing, you know, we connect everything digitally now, which takes away sometimes that personal aspect of the recruitment. It all goes through an online fill in a form that gets vetted by some computer that then gives fees, but doesn't necessarily give feedback to the people who are unsuccessful as to why they weren't, and all of that sort of thing. And I think there's a massive piece of work that needs to be done in that area to really personalize that experience of recruitment. It works at the exec levels where you've got headhunters and that sort of thing going out to find people, because there is that connection. But certainly when it's at an entry level, I think, you know, the career fairs, the job fairs, and the way you engage with that are critical to getting the right people on board. And we've really then got to work on the sort of delivery system so that although it's automated, it doesn't lose that personal touch is my view. Yeah.
I think also as well, using a good recruitment partner, if you can find a good recruitment partner that knows your business, knows what you're looking for, then it's a good investment. You know, if you're moving from one to the other based on cost, then you never really get value and return on investment. So, and Alex, for yourself?
Yeah, I think we talk about recruitment a lot. I would say that that's only the first step. The important stuff is when they actually start. And we all have a great responsibility to make sure we take care of them. It's like you learn the alphabet, but then you have to start building words and sentences with it. So the recruitment one, we tend to put a lot of effort and interest and processes and skills in that one. And then we have them on board and it's sort of like, yeah, okay, you learn. No, that's when the important work starts. So I would say recruitment process is actually not about recruitment. It's about the onboarding. And I think that is a key takeaway that we have to ensure we take care of the people we actually attract.
And Victoria, your key takeaway message?
I would say that the need to develop the SCM team requires attention. And of course, the age of group or key participants in SCM function, because there are often a few new and active key participants within the SCM function. And the key points from the point of view of people, I would say that it is lack dependence on specific people, then a high level of self-motivation. These people should be able to set their self a task and really solve it and really set a task. And of course, a personalized system of monetary motivation depending on effectiveness and decisions made by employee. Maybe there should be a maximum pledge structure. So a minimization of the distance from the point of need to the point of view, to the point of decision. And
thank you.
Of course, openness to rotation within the company. And the one important thing also is the average time of finding and entering the effective functioning of new employees, which is going to be, I would say, 3-4 months, because we know that often it takes years.
And Dan, just bringing you in, the closing remark, closing bit of advice, no pressure.
I'd say keep a growth mindset. Those of you who don't know Professor Carol Dweck, Google it. And I think we are all competing for the same talents, but in the end, it's our responsibility to create the talents that we want to have. And so stick to a growth mindset, both for recruiting and for learning. I think we'll do better with a more collaborative way of work. Definitely.
And I suppose my only advice is if you do find talent, then it's your responsibility to unlock that talent, because talent is one thing, but I think you need to put them in an environment which will challenge them and also help them understand what their true full capabilities are when you bring an employee in. So you know, talent is one thing, but again, unlocking those capabilities is another. Just going to open it up if there's any questions before we close on and move on for the rest of the day. We've got a long day in front of us of lots of topics. But again, any questions for any of the panel today on emerging workforces of the future?
We have had a flashing red light a number of times, so they want us to end the session.
Okay, so I'd just like to thank all of our panel today this morning. So bright and early, very insightful. But if you'd like to give a round of applause to Simon, Victoria, Dan and Alexander. So thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you for having us. Have a great day too.